Good morning, everybody, and welcome on in to today's FreightWaves Now Communities Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix. It's Monday morning, so it is time to check in with one of our hosts of The Stockout, our retail and CPG-focused supply chain newsletter and show. We've got Grace Sharkey joining us here this morning. Grace, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Say that description 10 times fast next time, Steve.
You know, it just kind of rolled off of us this Monday morning, so we're going with it. You guys have a really good episode coming up again in just about an hour here on FreightWaves TV, talking about more flexible supply chains. Never a bad thing to highlight, right?
Probably more important than ever before, especially as we're sitting in this election where we could be dealing with different tariffs here in 6 to 12 months. So I think a lot of companies are focused on that, especially in this segment of our wonderful community as well.
So you guys are highlighting a really interesting company, and part of that is going to be using specific tools to develop that flexible supply chain. Talk to us about who you guys are highlighting this week on your episode and what they're doing.
Yeah, so we're working with a company called Nulogy, who is working to bring technology to large retailers and CPG companies, Colgate, companies like that, to help them bring visibility and efficiency across all parts of their manufacturing and suppliers as well. I mean, like you said, right now, it's about trying to diversify your supply chain to avoid risk in certain areas. And so these companies who have global supply chains, who are constantly looking for new ways to customize their products, to bring innovative products in. That also includes visibility into those providers and those vendors, and making sure that not only are your facilities running smoothly, but their facilities are running smoothly. And as much as, we talk about technology, I think this is a huge area as you see these networks start to expand and grow, then you are actually subject to more risk. So being able to diagnose where your capacity is, make sure that everyone is online and reaching deadlines is more important than ever.
CPG companies in particular, I think, are really exposed to some of these potential risks that come from having a not flexible or rigid supply chain, right? I think about back, was it 2 summers ago now, where we saw the issue with baby formula, or the fact that a lot of these CPG companies, if they deal particularly with food and grain or raw materials like that, are really subject to geopolitical tensions depending on where their input products come from. And a lot of that is, again, subject to that rigidity of your supply chain. If you can't adapt when things happen, then you lose out on that ability to deliver to your consumer. Are those things that Nulogy is looking to really address? It's not just that middle part of tracking capacity or tracking location, but also all the way upstream to even where your product comes from?
Exactly. And I think the biggest part is allowing these companies to even have that type of expanded network. Kind of think about it like even your own relationships, right? The more friends that you add, it's harder to keep up with all of them over time, even though you think technology would make that easier, right? But I think what's they're trying to do is to make sure that as you are adding, let's say you are a company that really is focused, like one of your biggest ingredients is sugar, being able to have multiple vendors of that item throughout your networks in various areas across the globe, but also be able to tell well ahead of time who might be having shortages, and being able to maneuver your supply chain in a proactive way instead of a reactive way. And that's really what they're allowing these companies to do, is they're building the customized technology to make sure that proactiveness is happening. And again, like you're absolutely right. This is something I think that's on both retail and CPG. We saw actually this last week's episode. Go check that out on our YouTube page. We talked about Walmart diversifying deeper into finding vendors in India. And in order to do that right, you're going to have a really strong platform to help watch all of those vendors. And that's why Walmart is investing in the education and technology that their vendors in India are actually using, because they understand it's not just about finding a vendor in some of these risk-adverse locations or growing economies. sure, once we bring them on as a vendor, how can we make sure that they are keeping up with the orders and the products that we are hoping to provide us? So again, I think we're seeing, and I think even in sonar data, we're seeing this in manufacturing and warehousing too, is this a different way of gauging inventory and making sure that you're not ordering too much like we saw a couple of years ago, but that you're also not adverse to risk and not having enough items on the shelf at the same time.
I feel like this community spotlight is going to be, it's almost like a buzzword bingo, right? Like we have so many supply chain buzzwords going on right now, but I'm going to add in another one, right? Being risk adverse is one of those things that we hear a lot of these companies talk about. And they talk about it kind of in this like obscure way where they're like, we don't really know what our overall arching risks are, but we know that we want to be, as a company, risk adverse to all of those. When you're looking at that, you can't necessarily be adverse to something that you can't specifically pinpoint. Is Nulogy one of those technologies that really helps discover what those inherent risks are when it comes to your supply chain, whether that be a supplier risk or whether that be, I get my items from central Mexico and they're at the risk of geopolitical tensions? Is that something where they can pinpoint, is this very specific risk that you can then mitigate?
Yeah, I think what's great is they're building the tools to help with that, right? So, for instance, like clearly they're not going to be able, and really no one can engage the news, right? Like I can't tell you what China is going to do tomorrow. I can't tell you what Russia is going to do tomorrow. I can't tell you what's going to happen in Ukraine tomorrow or even in the Middle East, right? But I can tell you that 20% of your vendors are wrapped up maybe in those areas. And I can tell you some of the what your risk factors are within your supply chain so that when these instances do pop up, or you can be proactive and make sure, let's say only 10% of your vendors are in these locations so that you can avoid that happening in the future. I think that's really great about this is like, I think there's a lot of, actually came up in a panel I was doing. There's a lot of shippers who understand kind of the times right now. And even we talked about the elections, right? What possibly could change in regards to tariffs and where they're sourcing from and even watching nearshoring become more of a thing. Well, are they moving their supply chains with those times? Are they noticing and are they, again, once again, being proactive to make sure that risk, even if it happened, wouldn't be a problem to them?
So this begs the question, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here with this one. What do you think is the biggest risk to these CPG companies right now in the current state of the freight market? Is it that uncertainty of coming up to 2024? We don't really know where we're headed. Or is it the fact that they just can't really make a decision right now in this type of environment?
You know what? I'm going to throw maybe something else out there. I think that a lot of retailers and CPG companies in particular, actually, when I was researching a little bit about Nulogy, this came up in a case study with Colgate, is actually more of the consumer and what the consumer wants. And these like different, customized packaging or more just new, fresh products on shelves, right? Like I think consumers, as we now are in like this economy where we can easily go to Amazon and even Walmart now and buy things in all over the world, I think to remain competitive here in the United States, what's on the shelves in stores today or what's on your third-party selling site is you have to create this like huge economy. And with that is a gate, like what's the best way to explain it? Like leveraging all of these different vendors and suppliers to your network. I mean, to pull off a third-party site, look at what Amazon has had to build and the warehousing and all the technology that they've put into it. So if you want to even compete with Amazon, you have to have those SKUs, right? This abundance of different products. So in order to do that, you have to find vendors all over the globe, and you also have to keep up with what economies are growing, what economies are creating new products, and you might not see as much in the US, but when you go into India and you go into more like Vietnam, Southeast Asia, you're starting to see these economies grow and now expand their capabilities into allowing third-party sellers to contribute to their stores as well. So I think it's almost more of like what consumers want and staying competitive in this space and realizing, oh, we can't do this on Excel spreadsheets at all, well, not at all whatsoever. We're going to need some really powerful technology to make sure that to keep up with people like Walmart, like even Kroger and these different growing sectors of retail and CPG. We're going to need some technology to watch all of these vendors, make sure that we know what we're delivering to our consumers, at least on the forefront, we can actually deliver on.
How do you diversify enough to keep up with your consumer, but not too much to expose your company to risk? The biggest question that if you or I could answer, we would be worth a little bit of money. Grace, thank you for joining us this morning for a community update. Of course, we will have the show coming up later on today, but when does that Stock Out newsletter drop?
That drops actually on Fridays. So you guys will see that in your inbox on Fridays. Head to freightwaves.com, click on newsletters at the top and make sure you join it, of course, today. So you get that near the end of the week. And then check out the episode today at 10 a.m.
There we go. Thanks, Grace, for joining us this morning. And we will see your face in just a few minutes.